If one of the entrepreneurs comes through someone that you know and trust, is that a good way to approach you?
Yeah, personally, I like events like this, where you can just come up to me as a person, actually speak to me, instead of, I don't know how you got my email in the first place, and you're going to send me a full-on 2-page pitch with not knowing me, no personal interaction. Just tweet me, say, hey, and we'll be on much better terms than just sending me your full immediate, it'll say right at the top, immediate release, and that's all it says. Not just open up, nah, not today, I'm out. So, that's the way that I personally prefer going to. That's why I try to make it to as many events every week as I can. Everybody I recommend, just hop on Eventbrite. There's so many events in this area happening all the time. Majority of them are free. Just go to those, and that's how you're really going to meet a lot of press, other writers, and people that you could collaborate an article with to reach a specific press person.
Any love for press releases, Murray?
So here's my question to everyone out there. What is spam? Spam is an email from someone that you don't know, that has content that you don't care about. For me, most press releases are sent by someone who I don't know. And a press release is normally something that's written in a standard form with immediate release at the top and sent to a bazillion people. Well, that's spam. Firstly, it says immediate release at the top, which means, okay, that's the standard headline that everyone's going to get. But also, it's sent someone, it's sent to a zillion people. It's not exclusive. No one knows. No one cares. It's, I found your name on some press list, and I'm going to email the hell out of you. That is not a way to get any kind of connection. Do you get millions of spam emails? Do you respond? Do you even look at any of them? No, you're just like, bang, done. So what do you want to do? You want to, like Drew says, you want to meet people face to face, and you want to make sure that they know they're getting a personalized email with a personalized message, and that it really does fit within what they're doing. If you don't get a response to your email, don't be upset. They may come back to it. They may just not be interested in it. Don't hound them with it, because you'll just get on their blacklist for nope. What I would say is, probably the best way is to be introduced, referred by someone. Like with anything. If you can get referred by someone, if you can look them up on LinkedIn and say, I know this person, they can introduce me, that's great. But also, yeah, going to events. Because there are two types. There's startup events, so there's events like this, and also there's events on specific vertical topics. And you'll find that there are people who write about specific vertical topics, and you can go to those. Bloggers. There are lots of people who write for small blogs. Don't dismiss those as people you shouldn't contact. Because several things. One, lots of bigger writers read smaller sites. When they're researching for a story, they'll often come across those smaller sites, and that will influence what they maybe write about.
And also, a lot of big bloggers own their own mini blogs, so you may see a small blog, just search their name, and for all you know, they could write for Fortune as well as the small PR2 blog on the side.
Yeah, and they don't always we don't always necessarily, we'll go to an event and we won't always necessarily say where we write for, we just say we blog for somewhere. Because we don't necessarily want to be pitched to death.
How about Twitter and other social media? Are those good channels?
So they can be, but you need to engage a little bit first rather than just straight out pitching.
Mm-hmm. Retweet articles that I'm posting, favorite stuff, talk about the article that maybe I just posted a little bit, build a relationship instead of sending me that immediate release.
Okay, so if I would put it as similar to dating, it's don't go and ask the girl to marry you in the first day, right?
Exactly, right?
Right, you meet her and then, hey, would you marry me?
I need to be buttered up first, please.
Kind of build the relationship, right?
Yes.
Okay,
definitely.
cool. Excellent. It's interesting. That's what investors want too, right?
Mm-hmm.
The relationship first and then go ask for money, right?
And just like with investors, be referred by someone. If you want to get investment, find the investor that you want, but find out who they're friends with and try and get someone within their circle to refer you. It's much more likely to happen. Even though you can speak to me here, but if I know you through someone else, I'm much more likely to connect with you.
So how about how does a story get viral? Can you tell us a little bit about how stories get picked up in the media and it seems like they snowball?
Really, it just comes down to usually having a strong title and then what time you publish as well. Like if I'm publishing an article for Inc. magazine, I'll wake up at 5:30, 6 a.m. our time just so I can catch the West Coast, 9 a.m. at their time when everyone's just getting online, checking their stuff. That usually helps it pick up some extra traction, then I can go back to sleep for a couple hours. Yeah, and then from there, as West Coast starts waking up and everything, then you can, if you have buddies online, I still use AOL Instant Messenger. I know, that's terrible. But, I'll send it to a couple folks, ask if they can help me tweet it just to build it back up for the West Coast that's just waking up, and then it'll start taking off for its second round. And usually throughout the afternoon, 9 a.m. our time is lunchtime West Coast, and now those people on lunch are checking the internet, seeing everything else. So it's just going in waves throughout the day and making sure you're hitting all your networks, like your Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google+, if people still check that, and any other thing you got.
But also, look, here's the thing. Infographics still count.
Yes.
They still make a huge difference. If you can get data, create an infographic. Infographics do really well. They just do. There's no denying it. There's no questions about it. Create a great infographic.
And generally, just having the word infographic in your title will generally double your shares, honestly.
So, but also, for example, we know we want to reach a bigger audience for our columns. We know if we post an infographic, it will get a bigger audience. We want to post infographics if it's relevant to what we're doing. So you're more likely to get picked up. Secondly, once you get the article, if you manage to get placement, it will get a lot more page views. So it will just get more traffic. Also, lots of the places where we write, even though they're big places, they get syndicated into other things. So for example, we both write for Entrepreneur. I think both our articles have been picked up at various times by that. They're regularly picked up by AOL, Yahoo, Huffington Post, Business Insider. I have one syndicated by Time,
NBC.
Everyone. So if you and what happens is if it goes up on say Entrepreneur magazine, those publications have someone that looks at the major publications where they've got deals, and they have a syndication editor, and they take the most trending content and they bring it across. Well, guess what? If it's got an infographic in it, they're going to know it's more likely to get them traffic, so they're more likely to syndicate it as well. So infographics are still definitely a great idea if you can do that.
I recommend them for branding and just getting the word across. Don't use them so much for SEO anymore, because back in the day, everyone would put a super strong anchor text when they're in embed code. And before you know it, with one company, I spent 3 whole days on the phone calling people like, hey, this post from 2011, can you change that anchor text? So always just do a branded anchor with your infographics. So in the long run, you get more links to your site, more people clicking through, and then ultimately more shares.
Okay, what are some of the types of infographics that would catch your attention? Tell us maybe one infographic you wrote about. Kind of a story.
One that I've been really wanting to see get made, because Shark Tank, the new season starting for entrepreneurs, that's all the jazz. Just an infographic 10 biggest Shark Tank investments and where they are now. That's kind of something that I've been hoping to see get made, and I think would do pretty well. One that I just helped promote recently was just it was super simple, just the 10 biggest websites in the internet and how much traffic they get daily, and it was just each one, their logo, and then their estimated number. Google gets millions and millions of visitors a day, and Yahoo, and so on and so forth, and just usually the easier the better, just something someone can quickly read through in a couple minutes instead of a 10-minute article.
That also comes to another point, and that's to make your so for example, if your company has something to do with entrepreneurship and you want to associate with Shark Tank and you do the infographic about Shark Tank, think how do you make the story about what you're doing and what your project is relevant to something else that's in more popular and bigger media. So for example, last year a friend of mine, when the Super Bowl was on, their company created an infographic. The infographic was about injuries, because they were a medical company, injuries sustained by Super Bowl players, and they had a picture of a Super Bowl player with a American football player in English, with the cost of the injuries. So they related the medical facts to the Super Bowl, and that infographic was picked up and placed everywhere, and had generated millions of page views with their brand and huge amounts of traffic back. But they took some data on customers. It made it facts, made it relevant to the media, but also made it timely with another event that was occurring, which is why some of the publications were interested in publishing it as well. So you need to think in advance how you can create that.
Is this what is called news hijacking, or what is it called? Right?
Newsjacking, yeah, but newsjacking is generally when you would find. I mean, it's generally. Yeah, around a different topic, yes. Yeah, that would work.
So how would you see these infographics? Let's say you create a cool one, how would you spread it out?
So ideally you would have found out in advance who might be interested in carrying it and pitched them the idea of the infographic. And then when the infographic is coming out, have them work to produce that infographic. And work out, because you could probably do the infographic in different ways. Work out what you think the real hot buttons for that topic are. One way to do that is to track, use social media tracking. Find out, search the popular terms, find out what are really popular topics of conversation, and see if you can create an infographic around super popular topic of conversation.
For like the initial push, there's I think it's dailyinfographics.com. and visual.ly, Visually. Visually is actually San Francisco based, and I mean, you can post it on there. It's free to post your infographic, and I mean, if it does really well, you'll see 50,000 plus visitors just from that, and they include an embed code, so it's easy to keep sharing it from there as well.
Cool. The title of your book is how to get press coverage for your startup, and then there's the dirty P word, right? Traction.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, I mean, essentially, one of the things you're trying to do if you're trying to raise funding is to prove traction. One of the factors that lots of investors have said that they look at in traction is are you getting press? And let's think about why that might be the case. If your startup's going to be successful, if you can tell a great story, if you can communicate that great story in a way that is attractive, firstly, to media, and secondly, to their audience, then that's a way to prove you can get traction for your company. Also, look, there are thousands of startups, tens of thousands of startups in the Bay Area, around the world. They all want to get press. If you're able to get press, it's something that is another stage of proving to investors and potential investors that you're competent at delivering one part of the delivery, which will be part of what you have to do for your startup. I mean, one of the things about being a startup person is you may be a phenomenal developer, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to work with customers. You're going to have to sell this thing, and part of the process is just making it happen. You can have the coolest app in the world. No one knows about it. No one's not going to go anywhere as a company. Getting press is one way to prove that you can get traction.
Typically, what you end up seeing is that a lot of press comes in after the funding. So look at TechCrunch and all that, which basically comes in, oh, this company got this much funding, this company got this much funding.
But also that's just the quick
and I understand, yeah. But I'm just saying, I think the big challenge for startups is that how much time and money they can spend on getting the press out there as compared to building the product and gaining actual customers. Because a lot of VCs you talk to, traction is all about how many customers are using your site, how many customers are there, right? What is the business model kind of thing. So what do you think, like, how do you balance between the two, right? Because you have to, PR doesn't happen like that. You have to spend time on it, as you said, in terms of like making sure that somebody knows about your story. So what's your thoughts about that?
like everything in your startup, it's you've got to try and, I mean, part of having a startup is you've got to try and make everything happen. So I think you partly need to work out, are you going to be good at it, or can you find someone to be good at it in your team? I think one criticism of a lot of startups is that they don't, like, they hire a technical team, but they don't hire someone early enough to do marketing. And marketing should be two ways. It should be both push, trying to get your message out, but also, does the message about my product resonate with customers, and does it resonate with media and on social media? And having someone in marketing from early on within your company who can actually be running that loop is important, because that's part of making the product. Or service, or whatever it is. Sorry.
Isn't there a way where we can actually hire a professional agency which knows their job, and they spin the story, and you can't expect the entrepreneur to know the law, be the lawyer, be the CA, and be the PR person.
So we both do that.
Okay.
He's part of the team, right?
You scared us, man.
You have the lawyer, you have the PR.
So you got the whole team right over here.
So we both do that. But even if you hire us to do that, one of the things that we have to do is to work with you on all of those elements.
Right.
And it is certainly possible to do it yourself. Like, I know a lot of people who very successfully do it themselves, and whether you're hiring someone or, as I say, doing it yourself, it's a skill that you should try and learn. And even, I mean, if you're a developer, hiring other developers is easy because you understand it. At least if you're going to be doing PR for your startup, whether you hire someone or whether you do it, you should try and understand how it works, and what services you're buying, how you're going to help them. Because for us, we work with different companies doing this, but the more you can help us, the more you can give us customer facts, the more you can build the story, the more you can say, I'm doing this, and also understand what's important. Like, I was speaking to someone yesterday, and they're quite a big company. They've got a few million users, and they're going to launch an app. And the CEO phoned me up and said, "We're doing really well. We're going to launch this app. We want to get it in TechCrunch." I'm like, "Yeah, no one cares about your app." My question is, why should people care about your app? How is it going to benefit people? Why should they care about it? Even if you're like, no one cares about your inside story. You've got to make people, you've got to tell that story, and that's really important.
Any questions?
Yeah, so Huffington Post or something like that.
We'll get back to you.
You're doing such a good job. Nobody has a question. You tell us everything.
Right? Just hire you and then we can get out of here. Right? So like Huffington Post or something, if you wanted an article, story, whatever, and you know, how would you get into Huffington Post?
So really, Huffington Post has so many sections, and each section of Huffington Post, like Huffington Post Live, their food section, entrepreneur section, tech section, every section has like 2+ editors, and all of these editors that I've come across for Huffington Post in particular have like 200-300 followers on Twitter. So I mean, it's kind of easy to catch their attention and begin building that relationship, and then just, down the road you can kind of send them an idea of like, this is kind of what I'm working on, are you interested in hearing more? And then, same thing, like retweeting their stuff. If they have like their own Facebook fan page or anything, be sure you're liking, commenting, anything you can to keep engaging with these editors is going to be the best route you can go. So down the road, you can begin pitching your stuff and, using that relationship to benefit both, because they get awesome content to post and your product or service is getting published as well.
So there's probably, each section has 2-3 editors, but they also have maybe 10 or 20 writers.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep following those different writers. Yeah. Something else that we haven't talked about from the press side so far is that Kim McNichols, who was the editor of Forbes, had a great comment when I asked her about how to get press for your startup. If we write about a startup, we're not instantly going to write about the same startup. So you can't necessarily say, well, you wrote about my competitor, therefore you might write about me today. It's more the topic we write about. The second thing is, if people are writing about your competitors, make comments. Because someone who reads that article who cares is going to read the comments. So one of the easiest ways to get press for your company is to find out who writes about your competitors and just make comments. Don't sell your company. Make great comments on the topic about how you can help those people, and they'll follow you back.
What about B2B? How do things change? So we've got industry analysts, right? We've got industry-specific journals that have different topics that are coming up. Can you talk a little bit about that space?
We both do a lot of the B2B section. I would go to industry conferences, and if you go to the industry conference and go on Twitter, you'll find people who are tweeting about it. Probably the big people with the biggest Twitter profiles are the journalists, so you can follow them there. Also, most of them have a press room. Try and find out where that is, and
so I know every big event I go to like that, like I'll always tweet a few times, usually with the photo, and I'll always use the hashtag, and yeah. So I'm always there. Just search whatever hashtag they're promoting at the thing, and usually whoever has the highest follower count's usually who you want to look for pitching.
Do you guys pitch to analysts?
I have done a bit. The problem with analysts is that they tend to be mainly interested in big companies, is what I found. I see a few nodding heads. And it's hard to get them to be interested in smaller companies. That's what I found anyway.
Unless it's a new area, then they start looking.
Yeah.
It seems like you both started promoting yourselves as journalists through blogging, right? What advice did you give to our startup entrepreneurs about starting a blog or promoting their blog, writing stories on their own blogs?
Really, like, I just hang out on my porch and I'll open up my notes on my phone and sit there and whatever I think, and I'll just think of titles. I don't know, I'm pretty lame. I'll just hang out, sit there and write a bunch of titles into my notes thing as I'm hanging out outside, and then I'll give it a couple days, go back through and clear out which ones I wouldn't click through that day. And then whichever ones are left over, that's usually what I'll start writing to build up my own, I just call it like fluff content, really. It's just, general nice stuff that myself and I hope everyone else would enjoy to read, and it's just general helpful stuff.
How did you get to your first article written about in one of these big companies? What's the story behind it?
Mine, if anyone remembers Dig, back in the day, I used to be one of like the top 100 power users there, and that's how I really began networking and meeting a lot of people. And one of my buddies that was also a power user on Dig ended up working at National Geographic, and I was like, I promote a lot of environmental stuff. You want to give me a shot and, write an environmental article. So I wrote a few for him, and after about 10 or so, I was like, can I just get my own author account and publish with you? And yep, just kept building from that standpoint and networking nonstop.
With me, it's also been about networking. It's really about who you know. And you have to, generally you have to start small. And you work your way up. I've spoken to a lot of editors about how they choose. Here's the thing, to a certain extent, no editor wants to take a risk on you. Yeah. So if you've written if you start writing for your own blog, you've got some good content. A trade publication is probably then a nice first step, because it's probably smaller, it's very niche, it's really on your topic, you're an expert on that topic, start writing for the trade publication. Once you've written for some smaller trade publications, then you can probably work your way up to bigger publications. One point I was going to make about bloggers is not only might the blogger write for bigger places, but also often those bloggers know other bloggers, and other bloggers know other writers for bigger publications. And there is a community of bloggers and press people, and so get to know the smaller people, which are probably easier, being hounded less, and then work to build up that list of connections.
I have a question. So PR is great unless it's maybe a little bit too early. Do you ever see companies that are getting pressed maybe too early in their startup stage?
Yeah,
Like
you-
having
I
too
mean,
much
what-
traffic,
how
right?
should
Like that would be a
we
good problem to
plan that?
have.
Should we pre-launch, post-launch?
So one thing that we both said is it's about relationships. So I would definitely start building the relationships. And you might not want to go full guns trying to get press about something that's not fully finished or fully formed, but certainly trying to communicate with the press about what your startup is, so that as and when you're ready with it, you're ready to get that take up and they know what it is. Maybe they each time you meet them, you tell them a little bit more about where you are. To a certain extent, the fact that they've heard the story means that they're more committed to it, and then they're more likely to publish it as and when it comes out. You're not pitching them cold.
How often do you read the comments on your articles, the articles that you've written?
All of them, they get emailed to me right away. Trust me, if it's negative, I'm there within a couple minutes responding, trying to fix if there's any problems.
Okay. So would you say that's a general?
I would hope so.
I don't like reading the comments.
They can get brutal sometimes, but you gotta take the good with the bad. So.
And don't. Here's one thing. Don't write negative comments.
Just hurt all of our feelings.
but it's just not going to ingratiate you.
Yeah.
And if you're turned down for a story, don't pursue them, because they'll just get annoyed. Like I gave a similar talk a while ago, and this lady said, I write to journalists, and then if they don't respond, then I phone them. And she's like, she felt entitled. She was like, they deserve to respond to me, and they should be writing about my company. I thought, do you respond to every sales email you get? And if they phoned you up and said, why didn't you respond to my spam? And I'm going to keep phoning you till you respond to my spam. How would you feel at the other end of that? And we get pitched constantly. So yeah, just make sure you're building a positive.
Okay, we have a question.
Yeah. What's your thought on blogging on your own site, or on your own Facebook account, the page? Is that beneficial, or do you think it's kind of hand in hand with press?
Me and you as well. We've created like our own fan pages. So like regular Facebook, I post all my articles on there.
As yourself, not as your company, yourself,
Correct.
your own. Okay.
Yes. And I still bug the hell out of everyone on my regular profile with my articles anyway. But yeah, the fan page, it's just an extra outlet to constantly build up a reputation for yourself as well as your brand, and just keep posting up anything that you've written or mentioning your company. And I always put a few bucks into the Facebook ads, It's always nice just to get a few extra clicks and likes to help keep growing that, as well as your company page or your personal page.
Yeah.
Can you spend a
Question from San
minute?
Diego.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm an alien, a former alien of ordinary ability, by the way. Question, so we launched on Kickstarter, we hired a PR firm out of London, UK, by the way. And a question for you guys, any tips on how best to work with a PR company, and also any Kickstarter tips? Thank you.
Got any good Kickstarter tips? No, I always just recommend for Kickstarter stuff. I see a lot of friends try Kickstarter, and the first week that they're doing it, they'll be super passionate, posting it on their Facebook, their Twitter every day, and then they'll see, like they have $300 out of maybe their $1,500 goal, and then just stop. Don't stop. Always try, to create different little things someone can get, like they'll get a sticker with their name on it or anything like that, extra goodies. And then also, if you have like the team available, create new content that can go out mentioning your Kickstarter. Again, with the infographic, that's something that's nice because you can create 1 or 2 of them and get it spread across a couple hundred sites, and it's just a huge blast of people going to your Kickstarter to check it out.
So I would say, I would really emphasize that look, you're trying to convey a story. You're trying to convey a story to the press. You're trying to convey a story to the audience. If you are at if you're at this event and you say one thing for 30 seconds, you get a bit of time. But you need to work out how you're going to keep the attention of those people over time. So if you're going to do a Kickstarter, you need to work out how are you going to have something every day or two things every day for the length of that Kickstarter that people are going to care about and can actually promote. So a lot of people don't do enough of that research in advance. Also, who else can you get on your team to grow this? Who else has a big audience that you can help to leverage? Now, a lot of people think, okay, I'm going to work on my product, then I'm going to stop, and then I'm going to work on my Kickstarter. Ideally, for example, you find people you're going to launch in a year's time. You find companies for the next 12 months, you're going to have one a month with their Kickstarter. Then when your Kickstarter comes, you're going to have a team of 12 companies help you with your Kickstarter. Also, as I said, with getting press, it's about telling your story. So, what can you create to tell your story? What customer stories can you get? How are you going to do that? Can you create surveys? The other thing is, as a small startup, you might not get that much press. Do you know people who work in, particularly in the B2B space, who work in larger companies, who might not have this initiative, but can you work with them? Can you get more data from larger companies that you can append to your smaller company story? And really try and work out, okay, I want you to get press about my company. What tools do you need to tell my story, and how can you start to build that up in advance?
Well, Brian.
So can you each spend a little time talking about a startup company that you feel has done a really good job of promoting themselves and getting press in a positive way?
Creopop. It was a really neat, just 3D pen. They reached out to me, without like the full pitch, like, you want to talk to my CEO? No, they were just like, you want to meet in person? I was like, yeah. I was like, do I get to play with that thing first? They said, of course. So I got to go out there, and they just spent an hour showing me their product. I got to play with it. I'm terrible at art, so I didn't make anything fancy, unfortunately. But just A/B testing. Like, I put it on my hand to see if it was going to be hot. Get a nice couple quotes from their creator. At the same time, when I was talking to them too, they were in the process of launching an Indiegogo campaign. And what they were doing is they created a pre-registration page where they were still collecting funds from users and setting that in a side account. So when that Indiegogo page went live, as it's 28, 30 days or whatever, they already had, 75% of the cash ready to go, and whatever happened from Indiegogo wrapped them up, and then it was just extra funds from there. And from that, I personally wrote about them on Forbes just because I thought it was a neat product, great education thing for kids. I know my nieces and nephew would love it. And then from there, I also saw them get picked up on TechCrunch, Mashable, just everything else. If your team or your company has the time to meet with me in person, show me the actual product, I'm going to be a lot more receptive.
I really like Modify watches, what Aaron's done over there. So basically, they make a watch, you can change all of the parts. From day one of the crucial things that he did was, and they sell thousands of watches. He's the CEO, and he writes a handwritten note in every watch box. And if it's their birthday, he'll write happy birthday to them. And he sends birthday cards out to people randomly as well. That is building a phenomenal following. And then when they had their Kickstarter campaign for a product launch they were doing, they had fans who were genuinely fanatical about their company and their product, and they really engaged in it. So, and they, he tells his story about how he started the company, why they're passionate about it. They post photos about what's happening in their company's development. They share their company's development, and they connect individually with their customers. And they really know what their customers want, what their customers love, and they have that feedback. And that's why they're getting great take-up.
Yes.
So I guess to clarify something you said before, you talked about how a great way to get some coverage, or at least be known, was to make comments even on articles about competitors, so that people can see your name and associate you with that market. I'm trying to wrap my head around what you meant by that, because in a sense, you certainly don't want to be making negative comments about these competitors in these comments, right? So just commenting on the market, commenting on what kind of things are you thinking about, and what have you seen that was been done well in that way?
Well, what else can you add? So, for example, it's unless it's a funding announcement, but it's more likely to be an article on a topic, and it's like more likely to mention the company. Is there another, for example, if it's an article about tips, is there another tip that they haven't mentioned that you could think of that would add to that? Is there something that that helps? How do you help the reader in another way? So it's just saying, what can you add that adds to the conversation in a positive way?
With an association with your own brand as well.
Yes.
And you want to establish yourself as an expert, right? That way you have more credibility. How about, how do you pick, say, oh, you work on 5 stories at a time, or you get pitched 10 stories a day, right? How do you pick the one that say, you know what, I'm going to write about this company, right? Like, what's the biggest motivator, all being equal, what makes you go over the hump?
Well, I mean, probably it's firstly, does the email come from someone I know? That, like, number one is, do I know them? Have I heard of them? That makes a huge difference.
Okay, so I'll send you a picture of all the people in the room. That way you know you've met them.
And then do I think my audience is going to be passionate about it?
Yeah, no, mine's the exact same way, and like that on top of it, as long as it's not going to say immediate release right at the top. That's just one thing that really, nope.
So your objective is to increase your audience with whatever content possible.
That and stuff that we're passionate about writing as well. I mean, the audience building that is always great, but I mean, if I'm going to keep writing about something that I don't care about, I could have 100,000 people, but if I'm not enjoying the stuff that I'm writing about, then, it's unfulfilled work.
How about the editors? What do editors care about?
The editors care about?
Traffic?
I mean, they just want quality content as well, because, I mean, you're a contributor for their baby, like you're trying to make both parties look good. Them as the editor taking you on as a risk as a contributor, so you're trying to make yourself look good as well as the editor that brought you on board as well look good. So, and a lot of times it's nice too, the editors will work with you for an idea, like if you want to formulate one with them so you can get their input as well, that they know the community will really enjoy and they can give their extra input for you. And work together with it.
So how much time would you probably dedicate to writing one article or one story?
Sometimes they come together really quickly, sometimes they take a long time.
Like, big difference between 400, 500 words to 2,000 words. I mean, 25, 30 minutes, 5, 6 hours.
But so, think about that. The more you can do to actually give us as close to a finished article, the better. And a finished article is not just about you.
Right.
It's, here are some other things, here are some facts, here are some things you can quote, here are some links that will be of that justifies that element. Here's why it's relevant to your topic. Here's why now is a great time to publish this.
So basically, you write the article yourself, you're going to get coverage in the media. Okay, a couple more questions before...
Is it ever okay to call on the phone, or should it always just be email?
Only if it's scheduled.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
so if somebody picks up and cold calls you, they're on your blacklist, pretty much.
I'm generally not a happy camper, so it's going to cold call me.
Okay.
So if someone write an article and then send out to maybe 20 or 30 different publishers, and you got one copy, and then you help that person to actually publish it on your blog, and then you find out, okay, it actually show up at different places.
So what I'm saying is I won't, if you send me an article, I won't just publish it. But what I'm saying is give me the as much of the structure as you can. Ideally, I want stuff that's original to me, but I know that it's not always reasonable to expect that I'm the only person that's going to get this pitch. But I'd say two things. One is I'm not just going to take it and publish it. And two, if you're sending it to 30 people, are you going to find 30 columnists that story is written for in the exact way that it's going to be applicable to their specific audience? Probably not so much. So, for example, if you're going to create the bare bones, but then tailor it so that it's going to work individually for individual people. If you're trying to promote anything, if you wanted to promote something to everyone in this room, and you got to know them tonight, you wouldn't send them a blank email with what's his name. You would actually tailor the email. If you tailor the email, it's much more likely that they're going to be interested, because I know that you're interested in this, I know that you're interested in that, and you can make that introduction and you can make it relevant to them.
Cool, cool. And before we wrap up, I would like to ask you if you can tell us a little bit about your upcoming book and how we can get it. And
so we were supposed to be done by now. I slowed up the process a little bit, my fault. So what we'll do is the ebook, it'll be all ready to go early next week, so we'll just be able to email everyone a copy. And
yay,
if you'd
can
like,
I hear
You guys are supposed to have physical copies finished for now, but they're not quite finished. So
if you would like a physical copy, just respond back saying you'd like a physical one, and you'll get the ebook still, but once we get the physical ones in, we'll be sure to mail everyone out that would like one.
So it's going to have for immediate release, PR.
For immediate release.
What's the infographic?
That's version 2 for immediate release, yes.
Are there any questions in San Diego?
We're good, thank you very much.
Okay, well, thank you so much for participating, and thank you all. Hang out and get to know Murray and Drew for a few more minutes, and thanks so much for coming. It's a lag.
okay.
Would you like me to take that for you?